When it comes to masculinity, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions out there. Many people think that in order to be considered masculine, you have to act a certain way and conform to certain standards. But for Sigma males, this isn't the case at all. In fact, many things can destroy your masculinity, and it's important to be aware of them. So if you're looking to maintain your manhood, make sure you avoid these 8 pitfalls. 1. Caring about what others think. Perhaps one of the biggest mistakes you can make is caring about what others think of you. As a man, you should be confident in yourself and your abilities, and not let other people's opinions dictate how you act or who you are. Remember, you can't please everyone, so don't waste your time trying. Your masculinity comes from within, not from how much praise or validation you get from others. Don't let other people's opinions diminish your sense of self. This not only makes you less masculine, but also robs you of your happiness and self-esteem. Keeping your confidence intact can be especially challenging in today's society, where everyone is constantly bombarded with messages and images of how they should look. But you don't have to conform to these standards in order to be masculine. Instead, focus on developing your own unique sense of style and identity that makes you feel comfortable and confident. Giving up your sense of self is one of the worst things you can do to your masculinity, and you must find ways to remain true to yourself. By doing this, you'll be able to hold on to your confidence and maintain your masculinity no matter what life throws at you. 2. Staying in a toxic relationship. If you're in a toxic relationship, it will take a huge toll on your masculinity. Whether it's with your partner or friends, if you feel like someone is constantly putting you down, criticizing your choices, or making you feel bad about yourself, then it's time to move on. Being in a toxic relationship can make you feel like less of a man and sap your motivation and drive. It can also lead to self-destructive behaviors as you try to cope with the stress and unhappiness. But if you learn to recognize the signs of a toxic relationship, then you can avoid this altogether. Some of the key signs that it's time to end a relationship include feeling constantly unhappy or down, having frequent arguments, feeling neglected or taken for granted, and not being able to be yourself around your partner. If you're in a toxic relationship, you must find ways to move on and break free. This will not only help you maintain your masculinity, but also give you the chance to be happy and fulfilled in other areas of your life. You should focus on finding better people to surround yourself with, people who support and encourage you, instead of dragging you down. This doesn't mean that you have to completely shut yourself off from the world. However, it does mean that you should be careful about who you let into your life and take stock of how these relationships affect you. If something feels wrong or people are making you feel bad about yourself, then it's time to reevaluate those relationships and either work on improving them or move on. By taking control of your relationships and letting go of the toxic ones, you can hold on to your confidence and stay true to who you are. 3. Wasting your precious time. Our time is one of our most precious resources, yet it's remarkably easy to waste. Many people fall victim to common time wasters like browsing social media or watching TV for hours on end, and this inevitably leads to a lot of lost opportunities for growth and self-improvement. People can't help but get sucked into the never-ending news stream on social media, which has been shown to negatively impact our mental health. At the same time, watching too much TV can be harmful to our physical health, as it's been linked to higher rates of obesity and chronic disease. This will not only sap our energy and productivity, but can also seriously undermine our self-confidence. We don't understand the full implications of our actions until it's too late, and we've wasted a lot of time. Getting old has a way of making us look back and see all the opportunities we missed because we were too focused on meaningless distractions. So how can you avoid wasting your precious time? The best strategy is to be intentional about it, and to make sure that everything you do is aligned with your values and goals. This means being mindful of how you're spending your time and being disciplined enough to say no to the things that don't help you become a better person. Whether it's a toxic person, social media, or some other form of distraction, find ways to reduce your exposure to these time wasters. At the same time, make sure you're carving out enough time in your schedule for the things that truly matter, such as self-improvement and meaningful relationships. In this way, you can avoid wasting your precious time and instead use it to build your confidence and achieve greater success in life. 4. Wanting something instead of working towards it. This is the biggest common trap that we all fall into from time to time. When we want something, it can be easy to build it up into something more than it really is. We may imagine how our lives will change once we finally get what we're after, and all of a sudden it feels like life will never be the same again. But as many of us have learned the hard way, wanting something instead of working towards it can actually keep us stuck and prevent us from achieving our goals. When we want something, we usually focus on the end result rather than the work required to get there. We start to imagine all the obstacles that stand in our way or what might go wrong, which makes us feel discouraged or overwhelmed. This leads to procrastination or avoidance, preventing us from taking meaningful action toward our goals. One way to avoid this common trap is to focus on the process rather than the outcome. Rather than dwelling on what you want and how hard it will be to get there, take a step back and think about what you need to do in order to get there. This will help you stay motivated and focused, even when things get tough or stressful along the way. Getting lost in our thoughts and feelings often prevents us from taking the practical steps needed to achieve our goals. We often find ourselves daydreaming about what we want instead of taking the concrete steps that will actually help us get there. We were taught that if we use the law of attraction and focus on the things we want, they will come to us. But in reality, this approach only sets us up for disappointment and frustration. To avoid this trap, we need to acknowledge the role of effort and hard work in achieving our goals, rather than focusing solely on what we want or how we'll feel once we get it. We need to focus on the steps and strategies that will help us move toward it. The law of attraction may be appealing in theory, but it's not enough on its own. So don't be fooled by the hype. Instead, focus on taking action. It doesn't matter how hard you want something or how much you believe in the law of attraction. If you don't take action, it won't happen. 5. Chasing meaningless relationships. At its core, chasing meaningless relationships is an attempt to fill some kind of void or need within ourselves. We may feel lonely or anxious, and so we seek out relationships in the hopes that they will solve our problems. But this is rarely the case, as these sorts of relationships rarely lead to true fulfillment and happiness. To be clear, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have meaningful connections with others. In fact, social connection is an important human need that can help us feel supported and loved. The issue arises when we pursue these relationships for the wrong reasons, such as in a desperate attempt to score validation or fill some other void within ourselves. When we chase meaningless relationships, we inevitably compromise our needs and put others' interests ahead of our own, which can lead to feelings of resentment and frustration over time. This can be particularly damaging when it comes to romantic relationships, as we often sacrifice too much to make our partner happy. This directly impacts our confidence and self-worth, as we start to doubt our ability to attract and maintain the right people. Eventually, we reach a point where we no longer trust our own judgment or instincts, and we may feel like there's nothing left for us in this world. You need to stop chasing the wrong people, even if they seem like the answer to your problems. This is like trying to catch a falling star. If you manage to catch it, what will you do next? It will only lead to more problems and unhappiness in the long run. Instead, focus on building your confidence and cultivating self-compassion. This means being kind to yourself, setting healthy boundaries with others, and learning how to trust your gut instincts when it comes to making decisions about relationships. 6. Settling for mediocrity. Another way that can destroy your confidence is by settling for mediocrity. This means that you are satisfied with being just average or good enough, rather than striving for the very best in everything you do. We live in a society obsessed with being good enough, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. We have to be realistic about where we are in life and what our limitations are. However, when we become too satisfied with being just okay, that's when we start to hurt ourselves. It begins to affect our attitude and holds us back from becoming the very best versions of ourselves. Additionally, it can have a negative impact on our relationships with other people. Think about the last time you had to deal with a subpar worker or just someone who was just okay at their job. You probably didn't feel like you had the best experience, did you? When we settle for mediocrity, this is how we communicate to other people. We all want to surround ourselves with the best, and that's not just because it feels good, but also because we are at our very best when surrounded by others who hold themselves to a high standard as well. If you begin to settle for less than you deserve, the quality of your work will suffer. Your relationships with others will suffer. And worse still, you'll be holding yourself back from reaching your potential and becoming who you were truly meant to be. So how can you avoid settling for mediocrity? The first step is to simply be aware of when it happens. But beyond just being aware, do everything in your power to break the habit. Do this by surrounding yourself with people who are better than you and know their strengths. Also, take advantage of any opportunities to learn from them. Overall, there are countless benefits that come from having the attitude of wanting to be the best at everything you do. It will make you a better worker, partner, parent, and friend. And who doesn't want all of that? Yes, it can be tough sometimes to get through difficult situations, but in the end, the rewards are well worth it. 7. Limiting yourself emotionally. Another mistake many men make is limiting themselves emotionally. We often associate being masculine with emotional distance and control, as if we must strive to be stoic and unemotional at all times. But in reality, trying to suppress our emotions is not only unhealthy, it's also impossible. Instead of trying to contain our emotions or force them into a box, we must learn how to develop emotional awareness. This means tuning into our feelings and acknowledging them, even when they are uncomfortable or painful. It also means learning how to express ourselves in healthy ways, whether through talking about our emotions with a friend or journaling about them. Emotional self-awareness is an essential part of confidence and well-being, and it can help us build our resilience. So if we want to avoid the trap of limiting ourselves emotionally, we need to start by developing this important skill. We can do so by setting aside time each day for reflection, or by seeking out new experiences that help us connect with our feelings. Through these practices, we can learn how to embrace and express our emotions without judgment or shame, and become more whole and fulfilled individuals in the process. 8. Not believing in yourself. One of the biggest factors that can destroy your confidence is not believing in yourself. When you lack belief in yourself, it can impact every aspect of your life, from how you interact with others to how you succeed at work. At its core, lacking belief comes down to being unable to trust yourself and your own abilities. This could be because of a past failure or even a fear of failure. Maybe you were always told that you weren't good at something, so your self-esteem has taken a hit. Whatever the cause may be, it can lead to feelings of insecurity and lack of control over your own life. So how can you begin to believe in yourself again? The first step is to start paying attention to your thoughts and attitudes. This means that you need to be mindful of negative self-talk and avoid getting caught up in self-doubt or fear. At the same time, you should find ways to build yourself up and remind yourself of your strengths and successes. When it comes to building your confidence and believing in yourself, it's important to take things step by step. Remember that you didn't develop a lack of belief overnight, and it won't be solved overnight either. However, with time and effort, you can make huge strides toward regaining your sense of self-trust and confidence. When you don't believe in yourself, It's impossible to feel good about who you are and what you're capable of achieving.